Talk to her, can't take care of all that. Yeah. I need to watch metal cases holding it in place.
Yeah, exactly.
He was talking about the dish soap, how that stuff never gets done.
Because he was unique for you. Yeah.
Well, what ended up happening that episode is the guy stole the statue. He did tackle and steal the statue.
Yeah, George had to go to the apartment.
So I was
Yeah,
that's about it. I hadn't talked to a lot of parents.
yeah, so. Her house is like a construction.
It's the first time though.
Ask someone.
It's everything.
Every other week. Yeah. It's like every other year. Oh my gosh, you get 3. Yeah, do the cats and dogs. We didn't vacuum it.
Back to the car.
We got to do that.
So, she really did not want to.
I think about how my dog would sleep on her bed. She's like, that's not mine. And that's why I've never had weird. We don't have much now, but I think
Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us. I'd like to call to order the March 20th meeting of the Downtown Design Review Board. Will all of the board members, ex officio, and staff introduce themselves, please?
Cameron Bolin, AIA representative.
Rick Blackburn, Historic Zoning Commission representative.
Perry Childress, East Tennessee Community Design Center.
Jared Worsham, Downtown Resident Representative.
Laura Cole, Downtown Residential Representative.
Matthew DeBardleben, Downtown Knoxville Alliance.
Josh Wright, Urban Design Representative.
Lindsay Crockett, Knoxville, Knox County Planning.
Chris Ford,
You
Downtown
have to,
Business Rep.
you have to hit the
Hey,
button.
first timer, hit the button.
Hey, pal.
Yeah.
Again.
Yeah.
Chris Ford, Downtown Business Rep.
Suzanne Taravella, Neighborhood Representative.
John Thurman, Downtown Development Representative.
Dallas DeArmond, Knoxville, Knox County Planning.
Christina McGraw, City Law Department.
Brian Berry, City's Plans Review and Inspections.
I'd like to officially welcome Chris as our newest member. He's replacing Joey Nator. All right, so the minutes from February 21st have been distributed. As if everyone has had a chance to read them, please let me know if there are any modifications.
I move to approve.
Second.
We have a move and a second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. Do we have any staff approvals?
Yeah, so since the last meeting, one administrative approval was at 1800 St. Mary Street. This is a new subdivision plat addressing discrepancies between the tax parcel and the lot of record. There's no new construction associated with this request, and that is it.
Thank you for that, Lindsay. Then let's jump in with certificates of appropriateness for 2330 Money Place. That's 3D24IH.
Okay, so I'll run through the description and the staff report, and then I'll let the applicant clarify and answer any other questions. So this is 2 new townhouse buildings. There's a building fronting Money Place here on the north. It contains 3 units, and then a building fronting Whittle Springs contains 4 units. The parking here, as we can see on the site plan, is proposed for a public alley or drive that's accessible from Whittle Springs Road. It features 7 parking spots in an area recessed behind both buildings. The money, and I'll go back to these renderings, but here's the Money Place building. That's building B on the drawings. It's 2 stories tall. There's a cross gable roof line with a 6/12 pitch front gable roof massings that project towards the facade. The building will feature an asphalt shingle roof, fiber cement lap siding with a 4-inch exposure, and a CMU veneer foundation. The facade features a 2nd story cantilevered above the 1st story. That's a 4-foot deep full-length entry stoop, supported by 4-inch steel posts. The building fronting Whittle Springs, which you can see here, it's building A in the drawings. It's 2 stories tall, features a cross gable roof line with irregular pitched front gable roofs on each individual unit. They vary on the left and the right slopes at 4/12 or 8/12. The building will also be clad in that fiber cement lap veneer or fiber cement lap siding, and then there is a vertical V-groove siding and panels adjacent to the windows, and then a CMU veneer. So just to run through some of the comments, this property contains 2 vacant parcels. They're zoned RN4. The surrounding areas you can see here is characterized by small-scale commercial properties and then single-family residential houses moving down Money Place. So the applicant here, as we discussed in the workshop, will use the new section 4.6 of the zoning code, the middle housing standards, which may allow more flexible development of land than is possible under the base district zoning regulations. They will be subject to additional dimensional, design, and parking standards. The middle housing review occurs separately through planning staff. Here, the DRB review will focus on how the project meets the infill housing guidelines, and I'll offer the note that some elements of the middle housing review may trigger site plan and building elevation revisions, which may require additional review and approval by the DRB as the design would change. So the comment number 3 is one element of this. It's related to the front setback. There may be revisions required in the front setback as part of middle housing review, but there is also the capacity for an administrative variation or a variance. So at this time, the planning staff is comfortable with this being reviewed by the design review board as is. Another element there associated with the middle housing review is the parking. So parking right now meets the infill housing guidelines. It's located behind the primary buildings and it's accessed from an alley. If the site plan is revised to access the parking from a new driveway off Money Place, fewer units may be provided, and so that would require site plan revisions and a return to the design review board. Moving towards those guidelines, overall, this property is a corner lot. It's a transition from that commercial development to the single-family houses on Money Place. The houses are minimal traditionals and infill construction. The townhouses are aligned with the surrounding residential construction by gable roofs, double-hung windows, and lap siding, and then kind of a modest architectural detail. The multi-unit townhouse form necessitates an additional story beyond the height of the 1-story single-family houses along the street, but these are not overly tall or disproportionately out of scale with the context. The more narrow units with just 3 the more narrow building with 3 units instead of 4 front Money Place, while the larger building and units front Middle Springs. Per the design guidelines, the designs use porches, bays, and breaks in the facade to continue the architectural rhythm of the block. The Money Place building incorporates a full-length 4-foot wide stoops, and it is compatible with original porches on the block, which are typically kind of narrow recessed entry stoops. And if we need to look at street view, we can. Overall, the proposed window design and placement meets the design guidelines. It's compatible with the block and the surrounding neighborhood. They use a relatively symmetrical fenestration pattern, double-hung windows, and actually there are adjacent mid-century houses on Money Place that use this single light fixed window flanked by double-hung windows. So they're connected that way. In terms of the roof pitches, the roof lines on Money Place have comparable pitches to the existing houses on the block. The Whittle Springs development incorporates a design feature we've seen relatively frequently in Knoxville in contemporary design, which is the irregularly pitched roof massings. They are secondary to that overall side gable roof line, and they delineate the individual units. So in this application, in the opinion of staff, these irregular roof pitches are appropriate for the design. The siding materials meet the design guidelines. the infill housing guidelines discourage basic CMU. However, the application will mirror the design of a brick veneer, and it contributes additional complexity to the building. So staff's recommending approval of 3D24IH, subject to the conditions that they meet the relevant standards of section 4.6 or receiving the necessary administrative variation or variance, meeting city engineering standards, meeting the transparency requirements of the base zoning, and also noting that major revisions would require further review and approval by the DRB.
Thank you for that, Lindsay. Is the applicant here and would they like to speak?
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Jared Huter, and with Ally Architecture. It's good to see you all again. We were here just a month ago with the workshop. We are enjoying being the first to go through the missing middle and infill both at the same time. So this has been an interesting process. After our workshop, we had a few questions come to us through staff about the design. So I thought we would go through those real quickly and just talk about how we addressed them or justify why we didn't change it. Already mentioned the alley. That's an ongoing discussion with city engineering. I think we have a few potential solutions that the city will work with us on. On the corner, we talked last time about developing some art piece or community space. We have reached out and started having discussions with potential artists to put something there, but that conversation is still ongoing. So it definitely is something that we and our client want to develop that corner into an amenity. And then moving into the questions we received after the meeting, there was a question about the large tree that's currently on the site, and yes, it is planned to be removed. I'm actually not sure if it shows up in any of our photographs, but there is a tree located on the site that would need to be moved. Another question was what determined kind of the site plan and the angle and offset of the 3 units facing Money Place. For us, this was kind of responding to the acute angle of Whittle and Money Place, and it also provided us that opportunity to get that side window out of that upstairs bedroom. We're always, I think I explained this last time, but in townhomes, we're always looking for opportunities to provide that side view if we can through bumping things out. Also gives the porches kind of that side view down the street. So the mass of the building is angled while the actual stoop or porch is facing directly to Money Place. So that was a little bit of why that angle came about. What determined the roof pitch and the offset gable? You know, we looked at it. There's quite a few different roof pitches on the Whittle Springs context. We even have a butterfly across the street. I was trying to figure out how to do a butterfly townhome, but that didn't work. But we thought, you know, on Money, we keep it a more traditional symmetrical gable. And then on Whittle, we kind of made a nod to some of the contemporary roof forms that we see around us on Whittle just by offsetting that gable. Also has to do with the interior spaces. These second floor bedrooms are going to be open to the underside of the roof, so you'll have that loft, and it's a way for us to make for a more interesting interior space. Discussion about the height, or a question about the height of the windows. Our second floor windows are shorter than our first floor windows. They're the same size in width, but their height decreases. We found this to be actually pretty common in residential urban architecture. We find it useful in 2 different ways. One, in privacy. Naturally, there's more glass on the first floor where you've got your kind of more public spaces where you want view to the street. But we also like higher sills on the second floor because it gives potential owners a lot more flexibility with bedroom layouts and that kind of stuff. So we keep the width of the windows similar, but the sill heights get raised to allow for that. Let's see. Oh, and then also with the windows on the elevation there at the top on Whittle Springs, We have a bit of a shift. We have the double hung on the right on the second floor. On the first floor, the double hung shifts over to the left side. This was a question as to why we were doing that. It truly is just a compositional thing. It's challenging with townhomes when they get super repetitive. And so we try to make small moves like that while still using the same window package. We make small shifts to add some movement and interest on the elevation. So everything just isn't rigidly stacked vertically. Let's see. So there was a question about both in the meeting and after the meeting about downspouts and stormwater management. That shows up both in the renderings now and in the drawings, our downspouts and gutters. There's a question about the half-high CMU block. We did check with the city and have confirmed that that is appropriate. We've used it on other projects. It's a more brick size of a CMU. And we've used that quite a bit, and it actually ends up looking really nice. There was a concern or question about the flat panel hardy fiber cement panels, and we agree. When we looked at that again, we typically try not to use it unless we can stay away from joints, and the dimensions weren't working out once we looked at it again, and so we went with the V-groove vertically, so it'll be a little bit of a cleaner detailing there. So appreciate that concern and comment. There was a concern about the main massing roof running kind of the gable that runs on this, trying to think how to explain this, running parallel to Whittle, that its bearing height was higher in the back than in the front. That's all that bearing height is now the same. And we provided more informational materials. There were some questions on the money place side. So in this submission, we have a bit more on that. And then someone asked that we provide a 3D axonometric. So I thought I would do you one better and pass around a 3D model. So this is just kind of our study model that we have that we've worked on different schemes, and everybody likes a toy, so I'll let you guys take a look at that. And it has some of the context nearby. And I believe that was our full list of questions that we had received prior to the meeting. And yeah, so I'm here to answer any further questions.
Great, thank you for all that feedback. And for the model, I think that'll be interesting. Does anyone have any more questions or comments?
Did you receive any additional clarification on use of the alleyway?
Yeah, there's been a few different conversations specifically with our client directly with city engineering. I haven't been a part of every one of those conversations. My understanding is there's a discussion about abandoning the alley, but still allowing us to have ownership and have that curb cut. So, or possibly sharing. The strange thing with the city is the width of it. They want it to be full 22 feet or 26 feet wide, even though the alley's not even have that much right of way. So there's discussion about having part of it on the property versus part of it in this right of way, or if the client just takes the entire alley with closing it. The goal is to still use that curb cut if at all possible, so that we don't have to come off Money Place or Whittle, because we agree it's a much better use. Any other curb cut would be closer to the intersection, which would be worse.
I just wanted to say that I think this is exactly how the workshop process is supposed to work. I mean, that was a really thorough response, and we had a really good discussion the first time around, so I appreciate all your work.
Thank you.
On the base with the block, one of the renderings showed it projecting pretty far. How far is it going to project from the face of the lap siding?
It's just a typical 4-inch deep veneer.
Okay, so that cap block will act as the sill for sloping. It won't have to be exposed flashing or anything like that. That's
Correct. Our goal is, to do a true roll lock across there.
Okay. And then I think so those comments about the windows some of those were mine. And it's really that main facade on Whittle Springs, the smaller window and then the exposure of the lap siding at the head above the windows, that proportion just seems pretty squatty, and I don't think the smaller window is helping with it. So maybe it's not that the window necessarily gets bigger, but there's just something about the distance between the top of the window head to the peak of the gable in comparison to the what's the other street perpendicular to it? I guess that's Money Place. That proportion isn't. That one seems more appropriate because I think it's probably because it's not an offset gable and you've got the higher exposure in the middle, but there's just, it looks a little squatty. That's just an opinion. I don't think there's anything about our guidelines that'll make you change that, but there's just something about that that doesn't seem resolved. And I think it might be because there's no overhangs really on the edges of those eaves. So is that, I know you mentioned the nuance of having the offset gable on the inside for the interest of it, but I just wonder if there's any potential for that height to raise to be able to give it a better proportion on the street.
Yeah, we can definitely take a look at it. We had purposely, and this was the reason for actually the two bearing heights, and we just decided that it was too much effort anyway, but we were purposely trying to keep the building low because of the scale of everything around it. And I agree, maybe that does cause some proportional issues. Meeting the transparency, keeping the mass of the building at a scale that's agreeable to the surrounding. I mean,
well, they're already tall and they're 2 stories, so it's just like, I mean, I wonder if even just a foot, I mean, to study that would be, it's nothing I'm gonna mandate, but I think that there's something just slightly off on that one elevation that I think could be resolved with a little bit more height at that, above that head.
Okay.
I make a motion to approve per staff comments.
I second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. All right, now we're going to move to certificates of appropriateness. 55 West Jackson Avenue, 2B24DT. Lindsay?
Okay. So this was an application that was postponed at the last meeting. Just to give a real brief summary, this is the proposed replacement of windows on the 2nd, 4th, and 5th floors of the southeastern glass building. So these are the original multi-light steel windows with the operable center panel. The exterior trim and sills will be retained, and the applicant has submitted information on the proposed aluminum storefront windows with surface applied muntin and rails. So this was postponed at the February meeting to allow the applicant to provide more information, in particular on the overall kind of campaign of the window replacement, but also information, measurements showing the profiles and how those could be replicated with the replacement window muntins. So the applicant noted that the intent was to replace all the windows at the same time. However, the windows belong to each unit owner within the HOA, and individual owners may not replace all of the windows simultaneously. The applicant has requested approval for the windows to be replaced on an as-needed or as-chosen basis. At the February meeting, the Design Review Board extensively discussed piecemeal replacement of these original windows. However, I'd clarify, and if we get into that more, I'll let our attorney weigh in. It's not in the board's purview to require the individual property owners to all replace the windows at the same time. So the staff recommendation here is to issue a blanket approval for one specific type of window, one spec of window, approving that spec to which all replaced windows shall be a match moving forward. Going to the design guidelines, the guidelines recommend that if repairs are not possible, replacements match the design, operation, material, glass size, muntin arrangements, profile, and trim. So these will vary in the design, as we've seen, and material, just using that surface applied grid instead of the original steel. The applicant has submitted a measurement showing the existing steel muntins, which are flat and are approximately 3/4 of an inch, and a profile that are flat and measure 3/4 of an inch. So in the opinion of staff, these proposed profiles do replicate the existing in that thickness. The overall framing and surrounding the windows should replicate the existing windows as much as possible. The trim and sills should be repaired and retained or replaced in kind. There was another rendering of the window, which I didn't include in this presentation. It doesn't have the same number of lights as the existing windows. So the panes delineated by those muntins should replicate the number of panes on the existing windows. So staff's recommending approval of 2B24DT, subject to the conditions that the applicant submit a final revised drawing of the windows to be replaced, each of them, with the number of lights to replicate those on the existing. The framing width should be comparable to the existing window framing. The trim and sills be repaired and retained or replaced in kind. The masonry repair meet the Park Service standards. And then approved window specification would apply to those windows on 2, 4, and 5. Any alternate proposal would require a revised proposal to the Design Review Board.
Thank you for that, Lindsay. Is the applicant here and would she like to speak? Please state your name and address.
Hi, I'm Allie Montgomery, and I'm filling in for Ida Randall, who was the original applicant, and for the Southern Glass HOA. So I do have an update about people opting in. Unfortunately, it's not a clear answer. People are still not committing to the process until they want to wait right up until the project's about to start, as well as they're still finalizing the assessment process and getting final cost information. So we still don't have hard commitments from all of the tenants at this time.
Thank you for that. Would you tell us about how the windows can or cannot be replaced all at the same time?
The board's purview really is to grant a certificate of appropriateness, as you all know, which gives the property owner or the engineer, whoever's the applicant, the ability to then apply for the permit and get that permit to start the work. Now they can do that. COAs typically are valid for 3 years as long as the applicant starts some kind of construction process. So they would have to pull those permits within 3 years. But as far as requiring that every owner individually in the condo pull a permit and replace the windows, that's not in this board's purview. I hope that answers your question. If it doesn't, let me know.
Well, there was a lot of discussion last month about can they be required to be replaced all at once or not at all? Mm-hmm. And you're saying that we're not capable of saying you either do it all or nothing, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Now the HOA may have some restrictions on that, but that's not within the city board's purview. That's correct.
Mm-hmm. But what we are saying is that anytime they do replace a window, it has to meet this specification, right?
Correct. Otherwise, they would have to do some kind of a new application and go through this process all over again. Mm-hmm. That's correct.
I would think if it's done well too, that yes, it will be noticeable, but not starkly egregious or something that looks terrible. Even if they're having to piecemeal the replacements. My actual question, maybe to ask the HOA, Allie, would be to what they're going to do with the old windows, because we're going through a project currently that it would be wonderful to have intact steel frames. There's a lot of modern glass companies. There's one I was just speaking to the other day that does a vacuum seal glass that can get down to like super, super thin to replicate the thin glass that was inserted in that, and it's actually insulated and has solar heat gain coefficient and everything. So you can, other than the thermal break of the steel frame, you can get a fairly efficient window with a historic frame. So anyway, I'm just saying those often get torn out and thrown away. It's just, I wonder what would be, maybe they could be preserved for somebody else to use.
Yeah, that's a great question. We'll take that to the board.
You're talking about
last
just
month.
Go ahead.
I was going to say last month we asked the same question and they said they were going to saw them out because they were so rotted, rusted, and embedded into the system that they had to. It was a pretty significant and totally destructive method of removing them.
I can see that because the way they used to tooth those in was embedded in the masonry. So yeah. Well, it's a nice thought.
I still ask them where they're going to go, Cameron.
I just have one clarification comment. Because this is a condo environment with an HOA, the complete window replacement isn't really legally an option, but if we had a contractor or a project, a developer, say we're only going to renovate the bottom floor of a project and we'll get to the rest of it later. We don't care about the upper floors right now. That's kind of a similar situation as far as how the street condition is left. And so I just wonder about the overlap of that legality of the HOA versus our purview to comment on the public face of the building. Does that make sense?
Is that not completely?
Okay.
Is that a question?
Well, it's just a comment that I understand the purview of our board and the constraints legally, because you can't force anybody to do something they don't want to do with their money on their property. However, if our purview is to comment on how the building looks and how it presents to the public, how it is constructed and on the timeline it's constructed does matter.
Yes.
That's my point. It's not really a question.
We've reviewed, and again, I wasn't at the last meeting, so you guys may have asked this question, but we've reviewed window replacements before multiple times. And was there ever a case where it was piecemealed window replacements, or was it always full window replacements? Like a Market Square property or a K Street property that was replacing windows, or Old City that only replaced 2 of the 6.
I would let some folks that have been involved with this longer than me speak to that if you guys can think of any. But in the last 5 years, most of them have at least involved like an entire elevation.
Okay.
Mike, I wish Mike was here, Mike Reynolds, because he had said there was precedent for that. I think it's the Commerce Building, and that's a condoed building as well, and that's why it was piecemealed.
One I remember too, we did, I think was the Hilton, they did one floor as a test on their new look, and they did that entire floor, but it wasn't only a portion of the elevation. I think there's some situations where similar things we did. There were some partial window replacements on the promenade side for us old people of one of the Gay Street buildings, where they only did replacements that were on the sidewalk level. So, but generally they've been an entire floor or an entire elevation or an entire section. I think that's really the only main difference in the precedence from what we have here.
I'll move to approve, subject to staff recommendations.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you for coming in.
Thank you.
You forgot to ask for any additional comments. Because I did have one.
Oh.
I forgot when we did the vote.
Oh my God.
No, it was just more of a comment that I think we've been talking a lot about the light structure. I mean, the windows, but I think it just needs to be of note that if somebody comes back and does a replacement years later, like the glass needs to be the same. It's not just, we're talking about the same, we're approving the same exact system and things, not a, different lights or different, that sort of thing. So the glass is critical to the approval, but I think that's sort of noted in here. I just wanted to say that.
Yeah, and I think to speak to that, should someone in a year or two pull a permit, our processes or pretty well integrated at this point, so we would see that when they pull it. If they just went ahead and pulled a building permit with a different window specification, we would be able to catch that and address it.
Yeah, on the, they just need to include all the light window, I keep saying light, but I mean glass details, so we can replicate that, so. that's
So
all.
no one has like gold glass or
Well, yeah, or even just slightly different UV, and then all of a sudden, we're concerned about the layout. They all look the same, but they read differently because all the colors are different, and they have different screening and different things in different places. So,
I agree.
yeah, I just wanted to make that note, I'm sorry.
My understanding from what Christine was saying is that this approval gives them 3 years to do this, and if it takes them longer, then they got to come back. And I think that may help address John's issue of if you wait 5 years and you can't get that glass that all the rest of them have been done in, could be an issue. So I think with the 3-year time frame, we've got some insurance anyway.
Okay.
Brian,
Well, thank you.
are we adopting a new code cycle anytime soon?
For ICC codes, the next adoption is 2024. Well, the 2024 version of the ICC codes. I'm not sure when the adoption will be.
Okay.
That adoption, we're hoping to get that started in the fall, winter, hopefully with an adoption date of January 1st.
I'm just thinking about even more nuance of like going to John's point. I don't know that necessarily if the code goes to a higher energy value for glazing, that if it would affect that you can still get clear glass as clear glass. So I'm sure they can match it. So, well, it's been approved. So let's move on.
Thank you. Now we have a sign, 530 South Gay Street, 2D24DT. Lindsay?
Okay, so this is a non-illuminated wall sign consisting of non-lighted aluminum letters. They'll be on the signboard area above the right side storefront. This is a contributing resource to the Gay Street Commercial Historic District. The relevant sign type is described as below second-story windows on that signboard. The proposed sign sort of extends outside of the signboard, so staff, we kind of concluded that's not something that could be approved administratively. Overall, it is proportionate to the building. The bottom of 3 letters extending below it doesn't really affect the overall integrity of the facade, and there's no illumination proposed. So staff's recommending approval of 2D24DT as submitted.
Thank you, Lindsay. Is the applicant here and would they like to speak?
Yes, I'm here. My name is Baker Jones. My address is 2313 Craig Cove. And I think Lindsay pretty much covered it, but if you all have any questions, I'll be glad to answer those.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. Does the staff have any comments?
The board.
I'm sorry, the board. Does the board have any comments or questions?
I guess for the applicant I'm looking at the rendering, and like Lindsay pointed out, the letters extend sort of outside the signboard-ish, but I'm looking at the section drawing. Are these letters individual, or are they in a sort of frame?
These letters are individual.
Okay. And they're lit or not lit?
They are non-illuminated.
Okay. So they'll just be proud of they'll be able to just slide past the little signboard component, the border of the signboard pretty easily.
That is correct. So they'll be flush with that bottom band where they're actually going to be overhanging, and so they'll stand off on the actual sign band so that they'll be flush there.
What is that bottom left section that John just spoke about? Like, what is that representing? Because that looks like a really deep. It looks like a pillbox or some sign. That's why I was confused too. How deep are the letters?
They are 2 inches deep, which is the same as the Starbucks letters that are actually right beside them.
And I can't read that. Does it say 2 inches? Is that why I'm just? It does. Okay, well, it's perfectly scaled. Mm-hmm. But you said you are bringing them proud of the inset to be flush with the step out, but they will stand off on the inset. Okay, that makes sense. Okay.
And I always struggle with the percentage maximum coverage and stuff. There's no issues from the size that we had. We ended up talking a lot about that with signs, and since there's some existing signs, I didn't know if that had any concerns.
No, that's the overall sign code element of that will be verified in permitting. It's based on the wall area. I wouldn't anticipate there being an issue on that.
Right.
And then our coverage, we have that like 9 square feet that we talk about, or the
Right.
30%. There's not actually a number there for signboard signs. So this one is
okay.
within the guidelines.
Nice, okay, good. I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion to approve in a second. Is there further discussion?
Thank you. Not this time.
Thank you.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you. Motion passes. All right, we have an exterior rehabilitation at 500 West Summit Hill Avenue, 3A24DT.
Okay, so this is an exterior rehab project. It includes the removal of some brick cladding, window replacement, and installation of new composite panel cladding. So we have the existing conditions of the building here, and then the existing conditions in a rendering, and then the proposed work here. So on these interior bays, there's a soldier course brick cladding that's dividing the windows. It's going to be removed and replaced with aluminum composite panels. I'll let the applicant speak to the drainage issues that are going on in the current conditions. At the ground level on the north and east elevations, these storefront windows, which you can see somewhat in these existing condition photos, are proposed to be enclosed with aluminum composite panel cladding. So this is not a historic building. Obviously, removal of that exterior brick cladding is, and those elements that are contributing to water intrusion is appropriate. Replacing with the aluminum composite panels does meet the design guidelines in general. Replacing the existing non-historic single light windows with new also meets the design guidelines. So the main element here, typically design guidelines discourage first floor uses without pedestrian traffic. This did not actively have that to begin with, and removing transparent rhythms of entrances and windows. So the building is owned by Knox County, operated by PBA as well. It's leased space to a center, an IT center that houses a data center on the ground floor. The application notes that this is a security risk. These ground level windows, as you can see on street view, are significantly recessed from the street as is. They've been blocked by some landscaping and site walls there, and they have not had doors that are accessible to the pedestrian to begin with. It's also tinted with a 1980s style dark glass that doesn't have transparency. So in general, first floor spaces without a public use don't meet the design guidelines, but in the opinion of staff, this scope of work as proposed is appropriate. So staff's recommending approval of 3A24DT as submitted.
Josh, I need to recuse myself.
Okay, thank you, Matthew.
You don't have to leave.
Thank you for that description, Lindsay. Is the applicant here, and would they like to add to what Lindsay had to say?
Yeah, I'm here. It's Corey Griffiths with MBI Companies, architect. Just to add a little bit to the water intrusion issues. When this building was built, all the brick that you see is soldier course between the windows. That's all just a single wide brick wall. There's nothing behind that, no kind of structural support, no sheathing or waterproofing. And so water is just, the brick soaks up the water and then it's getting into the building. And so that's where, as part of, other remediation efforts for this building, part of replacing the windows, because they've had some windows break due to settlement. They want to also, replace the brick, help to solve that water intrusion issue, and, in my opinion, help with the facade, with the overall look of it as well.
Thank you for that. Is there anything that the board would like to ask?
I move to approve.
Okay, we have a motion to approve. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Now we have a second. Do we have any other comments? With no comments, I will ask for a vote. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. Motion passes. Have a good day. And I will welcome Matthew back to his position. So now we have another sign, 300 West Magnolia Avenue, 3B24DT.
Okay, this is a new illuminated wall sign. It's 64 square feet total. It has a white background with blue vinyl lettering and graphics with internal illumination. It's located in the new signboard area centered over the storefront entries. So this is in the warehouse subdistrict. It's not a historic property, so the historic resources section does not apply. The sign is proportionate to the storefront on which it's located. Typically, internal illumination with a full white background has been discouraged in downtown design review. Internal illumination has been limited to push-through letters and logos instead of the full sign. The board may choose to discuss that on this block. I will note that at 210 West Magnolia Ave in July 2023, the board also required the use of external illumination or push-through letters only, sort of adhering to that precedent on a similar block and property. So the staff recommendation is approval subject to the condition that internal illumination be limited to push-through letters or graphics.
Thank you for that, Lindsay. Is the applicant here and would they like to speak?
Yeah, yes, I'm here. This is Lori with T&T Signs.
Hi, Lori.
Hey, I mean, Lindsay kind of addressed everything. So it's just if you all have any questions.
Thank you. Does the board have any questions or comments?
I guess a question for the applicant, is it possible to do this sign with push-through illumination and keep the style and similar look?
I can reach out to the company. I mean, we're actually contracted from another sign company that doesn't do installs. They just manufacture. So I can reach back out to them and ask them if that would be possible.
It looks like to have the letters be cut out to let the light through only the letters, you would have to reverse your image to where the white's black and the black is lit. I'm not sure unless the letters can be raised over a background and the light escapes around them, such that what's white in this drawing is not illuminated. I think that might be a way to achieve this look without having an internally lit, modern-looking sign.
Lindsay, will you remind me where that was that we approved the other?
Yeah, it was the Tennessee Valley Bicycles. They had a projecting sign adjacent to Public House. It was a relatively large, round projecting sign that had a similar white background. Ultimately, the board recommended that they use external illumination or use the it could have internal illumination, but the light would be limited to the logos or the letters. And they could achieve that by also changing the colors around.
Is the building frontage really 684 feet?
No, it's actually 864 inches.
Okay.
They've apparently done a typo once they sent this to me.
There's no other drawings submitted with sections. I just don't really understand how the ribbon is going to be achieved on the backside with because there's the letters, but then like inboard of that is the ribbon of the banner, I guess. That's the design concept. What is that going to be?
It's actually going to be on a channel. So there'll be a metal channel behind all of that you wouldn't see. Is how we would attach it to the wall.
Right, but the like on the very left and right, there's the canted in ribbon ends, and in the middle of the sign, what are those made out of? Is that the same metal as the?
Yes, it would just be that would just be metal also.
And then because there isn't a section, just so I understand it, the letters will project how far past the face of the wall or outboard of the face of the wall?
The total thickness of the sign is 7 inches. I'm sorry, I apologize, 4.5 inches.
Okay. And when I stand under that sign and look up, will I be able to look through and see the sky above, or will it be boxed out at the bottom?
It would be boxed out.
Okay.
And I'm sorry, Lindsay, did you say this meets the size requirements?
We do not have a specific set size requirement for signboard signs in the design guidelines. And then I'd let my colleagues in the city zoning department weigh in on any sort of sign code related issues you guys see with the wall area. Mark or Brian, do you?
I'd have to take a look at it real quick and see.
One thing I know about that building is it's got perforated metal on standoffs over existing CMU blocks, so there's already a gap behind the perforated metal. So you all are going to cut through the perforated metal to get a junction box back to the block, and then it's going to have, I guess, extensions that tie back into the block behind it to support the sign. I'm just thinking of all those pieces and cut throughs and all that, and how that's going to look from the ground level. It's going to have to be articulated well, and it's also corrugated, so it's a wave of metal that it's going against. It's not flat.
Right, and there are supports that's on that metal is what we're supposed to attach to.
Got it. So every intermediate, every like 4 feet on center or whatever it is, 16 inches. It looks like 2 or 3 feet, but okay. And then you'll have your channel attached back to those verticals.
Yes, and they'll attach on the top of the sign and the bottom.
Okay.
If I'm not mistaken, isn't the metal illuminated as well? Like the building is illuminated at night?
That I don't know.
I think that it is.
I remember for that previous sign that it was basically just a white circle that they had printed their sign on. And we have some precedent of allowing the lighting, if it's for non-push through, if it is kind of part of the design idea rather than simply a clear, an acrylic with print on it, which is not part of the design. It's just a sign they print on. So this is an interesting sign to me. I think it'll add interest to the streetscape. And as long as it fit the right size, I think I would be okay with it.
I think, I'm sorry.
I was just going to say, based on the dimensions they provided and what the code allows for, 10% of the wall, the building facade, it would be right at about 68 square feet is what they would be allowed. And I think they're showing, was that 64 roughly? So,
yes.
Yeah.
So our question is, this banner look like these are letters on a flag, critical to its design, such that having it lit internally with letters on it would be important to achieve the look. The precedent I'm thinking of is the Vita sign. That's the only one I can think of that where we actually did allow an internally lit sign with applications on the face of it, and it really was difficult in that design to achieve the look in a different way. I could see the possibility of achieving a similar look as I had described earlier, where you backlight the letters and the light comes out onto the wavy flag part, but that may be more difficult to achieve, because then what supports the letters and lets the lights around, it would just be a much more complex sign to achieve this look. So I could see the argument either way.
Question. I think I've been looking at this application more, reading some of the text. I think I'm having a hard time understanding. Is this a metal band that is folded that is folded and then, or is it like a flat panel that has cutouts that has a depth to it? Because I'm not sure if it's cut out, if it's a band and it's waving and then you can look up under the sky, I'm not sure where the illumination comes from. Plus it also mentions vinyl. It looks like the white may be vinyl. So I'm trying to figure out how it's really constructed. Does anybody know, or is that a question for the applicant? I may have missed that earlier. Maybe the applicant, can you speak to that?
Well, I was just reading one of the papers, and it says it is a flat panel, flat contoured aluminum backer painted white with printed vinyl graphics to match.
Yeah, that's where I think I read that and I got confused because I like if this is going to be a more artistic sign that is folded and very unique looking. I think I'm leaning more into the artistic, sort of to Perry's comment about the Vita one that had some intricacies that were very difficult to achieve with that illumination. I think I'd be more favorable. But if this is like acrylic panel on a box, I don't know that I could support the full illumination. If that makes any sense, what I'm sort of describing.
I think it makes sense to me. I think we might both be wondering if the graphic is showing accurately how this thing is made. Like, is it gonna be a box, like a rectangle with that printed on it, or is it actually that shape?
Right, that's what I'm curious about.
So
I would have to go back to the company that we're working for to verify that.
Just got some input from a participant from Logan that these signs are relatively consistent across this brand, and so wanted to bring up an example. I don't know that this is something that we would. It's not necessarily a guarantee that what they have designed is going to look identical to this, but but we don't know that.
I think that we should consider the context of this street compared to the rest of the downtown design district. One is it's facing I-40 directly, and then a big empty space underneath I-40. And then two, as much activation as we can have on this street would be useful. Obviously, we don't want to over-activate it with blinding light, but having it activated, I think, is important.
Yeah, maybe I'm being too, I agree with you, Matthew. I guess I just now fundamentally have more questions about what the sign even is. So it's hard for me to address the illumination, which is a key part to it, without knowing what we're even talking about related to cut-throughs, vinyl, metal, folding, boxing, acrylic, etc. So it sounds like the applicant may need to check on some of that. I'll throw out a motion to postpone this till the next meeting, till we have more clarity. With the comment, I agree, I could be more favorable towards more illumination given the context, but want to know more how it's built before sort of going outside of our guidelines.
Well, and looking at what they sent over, do you think, it seemed like we had a kind of a favorable murmur for the existing sign. If they could send us more detail about that,
right,
so that
I think that speaks to John's postponement. We had more detail, or the question I would have, the example that Lindsay brought up a minute ago, where we all over here went, "Ooh, I'd vote for that."
That was the donuts.
Could be such that, yeah, we'd vote for the donuts, definitely. But the way,
I'm pro donuts. Don't.
yeah,
John, wait, this.
to where if indeed it is that sign, do we empower Lindsay to approve it?
I mean, just in the quick Google search, Perry, I saw other signs that had neon, and
Yeah, there were other examples of this look from Parlor Donuts. So,
Do you want a cut sheet or shop drawings?
but just clarity, I think.
I think a section drawing would
Clarify
be
that, what
helpful.
clarity means.
Like, is it? Yeah, I mean, a section is it built? I mean, if it's a band, how is the lighting working? I mean, are you gonna look up and actually see all kinds of electrical components in there? I don't know.
Well, I'm trying to help the applicant know what to give us.
or a photograph of an existing one.
Well, they probably have shop drawings if it's a prototype.
Yeah.
Like a basic construction concept is what
Right.
you're asking for.
Yeah.
How it's constructed.
Okay, yeah, I mean, I can definitely ask for that.
I think one thing we shouldn't neglect is Jared brought up the potential that building's lit, how it's lit at night. So if you could clarify, it's not trying to get in the weeds on it, but if that's true, if there's already some sort of perimeter lighting around that shroud that's there, and then there's the light of the sign, it'd be good to know that they're not conflicting. It's just some oddity, but maybe that's outside of our purview, and that's just like you're putting up an odd sign on top of lights. So it'd just be something good to know.
Okay.
I will say one thing in favor of it was that image that Lindsay showed you can see it in perspective. It's projecting the 4 inches that she confirmed when I spoke to her. Is it not? It looks like it's got depth to it. What we're trying to ask is just how it's lit. Is it just backlit with the white versus the black?
Yeah, the document states there's a 2-inch return.
Right.
So there is some three-dimensionality to it.
Right, and then she already confirmed that there's no bottom that you're looking up through and seeing a light bulb or anything.
But like Rick, I just wanted to give the applicant a sense of if they come back with a solidly well-constructed sign, similar to what's in the image, that we would probably have a general positive feel for it. But I would entertain a motion.
Oh, I have one.
Oh, that was actually a motion. Okay. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Any more discussion? All in favor?
Let's clarify the definition, why we're postponing it.
And
You gotta tap your mic.
Let's tell them why we're postponing it and what they need to do next month. It's part of your motion, John.
Sure.
Please.
I mean, yeah, I did sort of verbally process it. My motion is to postpone, but mainly because the applicant has said they're supporting another sign manufacturer. There's some lack of clarity at this moment on how this sign is actually built. This board takes serious signs. They're asking us to approve something outside of our guidelines, and I don't feel comfortable without knowing that, without knowing more of the small text on the print describes a lot of different things in terms of vinyl, cut-through letters, not, metal, acrylic, et cetera. So my point is I just want to know how it's built. Is it a box and this is one acrylic piece that's got printing on it? Because it actually talks about acrylic on there. So this isn't off my motion, I'm just talking now. But, the idea is that how is this really built is what I'm interested in. And then we could I would then be in favor of saying, yeah, are we going to go outside of the guidelines on illumination or not? Because we could talk about, I can't tell, is the blue background of the banner lit or not lit? And will it be lit? And what I would probably be in favor of more lighting due to the uniqueness of the sign, but not just a big acrylic box that's lit. I don't think that meets the intent. So that's my personal opinion. So my motion is to postpone to see more details of how the sign's constructed.
Lori, I'll follow up with you on the specifics of the additional information to provide.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you.
Is there any more discussion? If not, then we can go for a vote. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. And we'll see you soon.
I will say, I love the look of it. I love the creativity of it. So it's not against the sign. I just want to support them. I love the look. Don't go change the sign on us. Don't go change it. Just come with details.
No donuts for John.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to make sure they understood.
Right. Yes, I understand.
If John
Thank you,
Thurman
Alex.
comes in the store, no donuts.
Choices. Do not serve this man. Okay, so now we've got an addition, 120 South Gay Street, 3C24DT.
Okay, this is a new rooftop deck and a wood pergola on the leftmost unit of the Commerce Building. So this will adjoin the existing penthouse area, which you can see drawn here. The pergola will measure approximately 23 feet 5 inches wide by 19 feet 4 inches deep. The structure will be 10 feet 5 inches tall. It's a steel structure wrapped with square wood posts and flat wood rafters. There's additional deck space that will adjoin the pergola area, and so you can see that on the site plan here. And it will be recessed from the building edge. The deck will be recessed from the building edge 4 feet by 4 inches. There will be a steel guardrail. This is a contributing building to the historic district, so the historic resources section applies. Rooftop additions and pergolas like this have been approved on historic buildings downtown when they're not or minimally visible from the street. The applicant has provided some line of sight visuals and measurements, including showing these existing posts here. The pergola structure will be recessed 12 feet from the building's edge, and it's only 10 feet 5 inches tall. It won't result in the removal of any historic features. There's already that penthouse area in this same building area. So staff's recommending approval of 3C24DT as submitted.
Thank you for that. Is the applicant here? Would they like to speak?
Yes, Logan Higgins, 133 South Gay Street. Don't really have a lot to add. I'll just point out, like Lindsay said, there was a deck, and it may have been previously approved as just a deck, but there was a half a deck structure built that was not permitted and is not structurally correct before we came in, and so that's going to be completely removed and rebuilt. But lucky for us, they had not cut down the handrail posts, so we're able to use those as kind of a reference guide for how visible it actually is from the street. So happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. I'd like to open it up for board discussion.
I'll make a motion to approve based on staff recommendation.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any more discussion?
Quick question, is there lighting associated with it, Logan?
Backlighting.
Okay.
No, I'm just kidding. No, there.
Transparent.
I think there's only like an outlet up there.
Okay.
But we're not planning on any lighting. If they come back and say, hey, we changed our mind, we want lighting, then we'll probably have to come back with that. So.
Yeah, okay. Thank you.
Well, I'll ask you a question afterwards. Okay, so we have a motion and a second. No more discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Thank you for your time.
Easy.
And that's the last one. Thanks, everybody. I will close the meeting. Have a good day.
Good, thank you.